Thanks for coming. It's actually a very important topic, and I guess like for this workshop, we'll be talking about onboarding the next wave of Web3 users, right? So there's a lot of ways to think about onboarding, but I'm here to represent Unlimit. We're a OG payments company. And what that means is we are principal members of MasterCard, Visa, American Express, JCB, Discover, so on and so forth, right? And payments is actually a really, really critical part of the Web3 infrastructure, right? If you're talking about, onboarding users to buying coins or buying NFTs, right? So yeah, easily, you can think of us as a node infra provider for Web2 payment networks. What that means is we'll do the card acquiring. We are native card processors. We support a lot of different payment methods. So for example, different regions of the world, debit cards, credit cards might not even be the preferred payment method of choice when it comes to buying crypto. We can issue IBAN accounts. And what that also means is, for wallets that we work with, we can issue credit cards against their crypto balances, all right? So yeah, I represent Unlimit. We have a fiat on and off ramp product. It's called GateFi. We have 150 countries supported, 10 languages, over 1,000 payment methods, 30 fiat currencies, 50 crypto assets. So basically a really, really wide range of support all over the world. And when we say next generation, right, what exactly does that mean, right? And I guess let's first explore what we're seeing in this next generation of crypto and Web3, right? What we're seeing in 2023 and beyond. So we've now entered an era of usability within Web3, right? So previous eras were a little bit more speculation-based, right? I'm buying Bitcoin to hedge against inflation, or, I want some alternative store of value, right? I want to speculate against either ICOs or NFTs, communities, things like that. But now we've entered an era of multiple use cases, right? So gaming is emerging, right? If you go to other conferences such as, GDC, NFT NYC, you'll see there's an abundance of Web3 games out there, right? Inherently, the economic model makes sense. So we're going to see, just increased adoption in that space, right? Stable coins are gaining traction to the point where they've penetrated a lot of these geographies massively, right? Specifically Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, Middle East. Decentralized finance is a growing use case, right? And now we're also seeing decentralized media, right? Both traditional media types as well as social media. So yeah, long story short, in this era of usability, right, we want to let developers focus on being developers, right? And what that means is, in this current landscape of, frequent changes in regulatory landscape, it's creating more friction than ever before when it comes to using new technologies, right? So if you do talk to a lot of various Web3 companies doing DeFi, doing payments, so on and so forth, legal and compliance has now become one of their biggest cost centers within their org, right? It's actually a massive problem for a lot of people who are trying to do these startups as software developers. Right? We want to let users focus on being users, right? A massive part of the onboarding problem is, this gap of knowledge between someone who's never used Web3 before and they're only coming from Web2, right? Similar to, someone like my mom, for instance, right? When she's using her photos on her iPhone, she doesn't need to know anything about the cloud. Just takes her pictures, it's on there. She has access to it all the time, right? So yeah, most new users have no knowledge of Web3, right? They don't own a self-custody wallet. They have no relationship with exchanges, right? And they don't necessarily want to go through these KYC onboarding flows, right? Creates a lot of friction, creates a lot of user drop-off. And yeah, when you go to a lot of these apps today, whether it be a NFT marketplace, sells art or music, right, or a game, buying nowadays revolves around usage and transactions, not speculation, right? So you want to get these users on as fast as possible, right? And anecdotally, I've talked to several different partners. They have a segment of Web3 native users, and they have a segment of Web2 users as well that have no Web3 experience. When they do unlock these Web2 payment flows and easier onboarding flows to these new users, they actually do see a 3x in adoption for their product. And another big part of it is understanding users in different localities, all right? So us at Unlimit, we do have the widest coverage of payment rails, including areas where crypto penetration is extremely high, right? So this way, we'll let users transact however and whenever they want, right? For example, in Latin America, right, we do a lot of PIX payments. In Mexico, we do SPAY, right? And this is how users do prefer to onboard funds instead of purchasing with credit cards and debit cards, which issuing banks are not always friendly with. Yeah. So what I said was, in certain geographies, right, we have these alternative forms of payments, right? So a lot of times when you think about purchasing crypto, right, a lot of these on-rampers, right, they like to use debit cards, credit cards, right? That's not always a preferred payment method of choice for users in different geographies, right? A lot of them, they use a lot of different other payment methods, right? For example, in Philippines, they use these things called remittance centers, right? They'll go to like a 7-Eleven. It's actually a popular way to pay their bills, right? In Brazil, they have an electronic money transmission system called PIX, right? So yeah, us having a lot of experience talking to partners, right? Fraud, AML, compliance, regulatory risk, it still keeps them up at night, right? And what we're here to do, right, as a software provider, is we're here to help our partners sleep well at night, right? So yeah, we do take on all fraud, risk, and compliance when it comes to onboarding your users, right? Something you never have to think about, right? You as a developer should just think about user experience and creating the best product possible, right? Yeah, and with that being said, creating the best product possible, creating the best user experience, it really depends on having a buttery smooth integration, right? And that's what we do provide. So we do have a highly customizable SDK, right? We've literally thought about everything, how to remove multiple levels of authentication, right? If you already work with a KYC provider or do some type of decentralized identity, right? We'll fit that into our system, right? If you are connected to some type of router, right? You want to plug in a smart contract, we can adapt to that. And yeah, so it's a JS SDK that we have as well. We also have APIs. It's a super easy to do integration, right? And yeah, for example, here's just a preview of our widget, right? It's pretty simple, just like other widget providers, right? You can customize the styling, can co-brand it, right? Fit exactly whatever your app needs, right? We'll slot it in an iframe. We can do a redirect to a new page, right? Whatever you feel like is best for your users. And yeah, that's long story short, what we do at GateFi. And over here, right, we have a demo link over here, right? We have our docs links, right? And let me show a demo real quick. So here's an example of our SDK, right? You pass in an object. It's pretty simple, right? You can customize the colors, variety of cryptocurrencies you can select and even lock, right? Same thing for fiat currencies. You can pre-fill the amounts, right? Depending on whatever your users need, we'll do that, right? For example, even something simple as the colors, right? We can change that. And now you see that we're pretty adaptable to, whatever styling you need. So
We can have our logo there.
yes, exactly, right? So for this presentation, I did the Avalanche logo because we're here at the summit. But whatever logo you have, like we'll fit it to your brand. That way, your users, they don't even know that they're using a different service, right? But yeah, I guess happy to do Q&As.
Are you guys like competitors with the RAM network?
Yes, yes. In many ways, yes, right? In other ways, we differentiate ourselves, right? So number one, we own our own payment rails, right? We actually have a direct relationship with the Visas, the MasterCards of the world.
RAM doesn't.
They don't. They would use what's called an acquirer, right? So they use another payment service provider. It's a software business built on top of other services.
It would be low.
Our fees will be lower, yes. So what that means, we didn't go into fees specifically, right? Because of our native relationship with these payment networks, we are more flexible for fees, right? So depending on what kind of model you want to present to your users, right? That could mean like if you're some wallet and you want to take a percentage of the on-ramping volume, right? We can do more kickbacks, and the users won't even know that they're paying lower fees anyways, right? So it's really helpful when we have that kind of relationship. Yeah.
So, are you guys been around for long?
Yeah. So back to this slide. 1 second.
And where is the company based? Is it a US company or
So we are based out in the UK.
UK?
Yeah, we're based in the UK, but we have about 500 employees worldwide, right? So we are a pretty established company. We've been in the payment space for 14 to 15 years, right? And that's allowed us to establish all these traditional payment rails as traditional payment processors, right? We've just launched our crypto product earlier this year, right? And hence we're emerging into the scene as competitors of the Ramps, the MoonPays, so on and so forth, right? But yeah, we do have a pretty sophisticated stack in terms of services that you can offer to your users, right? So whatever you think that you would need, we're here to, we do have a service available. And, as the ecosystem does change, as it does evolve, right, we already have a lot of options that can fit your needs, right? So, for example, if you're already working with another payment service provider on the crypto side, right, and you're looking to unlock any kind of new feature, let's say you want to do card issuance, right? I have a wallet, my users have USDC, right? I want to give them cards. If you work with other service providers, they'll give you a timeline and a roadmap, right? We'll have it out of the box today.
And do you have like a map of the jurisdiction?
So we do support every continent except for Antarctica, right? We are a regulated financial institution, right? So there are certain countries where we cannot support for one reason or another, right? Like either they've outlawed crypto purchases, right? Or there's some type of like sanctions in place, right? Those are the only limits that we have to obey.
What is your KYC? So, for our company, right? Like we are decentralized chat,
Okay.
like WhatsApp, with,
Yeah.
with a Bitcoin and EVM wallets.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have like a DEX aggregator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we need a license in order to use your service?
So exactly, right? You do not need a license, right? And that goes back onto us letting developers be developers, right? We take on the regulatory risk, right? We don't take on risk, we take on compliance, right? We provide compliance as a service to your users, right, when they do onboarding. Another thing that's very flexible about us is, we understand the users in different jurisdictions, right? So for example, you sound like you're Vietnamese, sir, is that correct? Yeah, so, you talk to other providers, they have much higher minimums that most of the Vietnamese population that wants to get into crypto might not be able to transact in, right? that causes, user drop off during the acquisition funnel, right? So what we do is, for example, localization, right? There's this pay QR in Vietnam, right? That's a pretty easy way to do bank transfers. We do support that in our widget, right? So like, yeah. Plus, we'll have much lower minimums, right? You talk to a MoonPay, you talk to a Ramp, right? Minimum purchase might be $50, $75 equivalent, right? We'll move all the way down to $5. Yeah, just because like we understand like different geographies, like we have a lot of user data, right? Just for analytics purposes, right? And yeah, we understand what the users need. It's called Unlimit. Yeah. Well, actually, Unlimit is a rebrand, right? The OG company is actually called CardPay. CardPay. You guys heard of it? Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Exactly. We definitely can, right? For the summit, I came here to talk about the fiat to crypto on ramp, right? Fiat to NFTs, all that stuff. They do have it, right? Depending on where your location is, right? You might not have as many options, right? But for example, if you have any other type of service that you would like to have payments for, we can service you there as well with our traditional acquiring. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wallet partners is, it's exactly like you said, right? They have their preferred wallet partners. We do as well, right? So the way that we do see the space evolving is, it's going to be pretty provider agnostic, right? The way that you architect these modules to work with authentication, right? It has to be flexible for providers. So for our side, right? For example, a pretty easy use case is you have some type of Web3 game, all right? You want to do some type of social login. You might use a Magic Links or Web3 auth, right? In the case of a Hypermint, right, I haven't used that flow specifically, but for example, say for the case of buying a coin, right, you would have to re-authenticate back into MoonPay when the user uses their app, right? We would actually collect that email address directly from that wallet provider that has that social login, right? We could work with decentralized identity and automatically log that user in, right? Everything nowadays is either we'll do it on-chain or we'll do it through JWTs, right? But there's a lot of ways we can work. We're very flexible in that sense.
You guys just launched?
We just launched, yeah. So we've just had our first batch of transactions in April, right, last month. And yeah, we were pretty much picking up steam. Yeah, it's called Unlimit now. So yes. We're not a full rebrand of Unlimit. We are a subdivision of Unlimit. So we are Unlimit's crypto business. Yeah. GateFi, yes.
But Unlimited is a very Web3 name.
Yeah, it is. It is, yeah.
And you guys work with like Nevis and Cayman Island.
Yeah,
Right?
yes, we do. Awesome. Yeah, and
That's a shame.
yeah, of course. If there's no other questions, right, thank you for attending the workshop. I hope this was very educational and informative, right? And yeah.